Hey friends, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Trisha. On today's episode, we are going to explore how your body uses the food that you eat and that you use to nourish yourself for fuel, and how these changes in what your body needs and the fuel that you give it daily shifts over time, especially if you're in a place where you are perimenopausal or postmenopausal, where what you feed yourself is going to change in a way that maybe gives you more energy or allows you to think and move in a better place. So having that mindset shift from over restrictive or feeling guilty about what you eat, really trying to get to a place that you can see and understand what the fuel that you're giving it is doing to you and how that's going to impact your everyday life, especially as you go through this health journey that may require some time. It's going to be really important to understand why you're fueling your body this way and what it can do to help you to hopefully ease some of the symptoms and just allow you to make this journey unique and individual to you, because you're going to have a different set of symptoms and the way you feel yourself differently than someone else will. Welcome to the Whole Health Empowerment Project podcast. This show is for women over 40 who are trying to create balance in their life when it comes to food, body, self-care, and wellness. You struggle to put yourself first, to maintain consistency when something isn't perfect, or maybe you feel like you don't have enough time or willpower to achieve the goals you desire. I'm your host, Trisha Stefankowitz, registered dietitian, nutritionist. I've worked with women like you achieve their goals by focusing on the next best step, no matter how messy, and meeting you where you are right now. In this show, you'll learn practical information, actionable strategies, and mindset tweaks so that you can feel healthier, more comfortable in your body, and make choices that work for your life. Come join me in failing forward, one imperfect step at a time, into the journey of health, wellness, and self-care. Welcome to your new project. When we think about our body, it is incredibly smart. Every time you eat something, it breaks the food down into exactly what your body needs for this particular time in your life and to nourish it. It absorbs the nutrients. It turns what you need into energy so that you can think and move and function the way that your body was meant to. For a lot of times, and probably for most of your life, you've probably judged food as good or bad. But the body doesn't see that distinction that, oh my gosh, I'm eating this food and it's good, and this food, which I've labeled as bad. This is more like a societal thing. Your body is simply doing its job to get and nourish yourself the best way that it knows how to do. So let's talk about that. How does your body process the food that you eat to turn into the fuel that it needs to nourish you? From the moment you take a bite, your body starts breaking food down into these basic building blocks. The building blocks tend to be our carbohydrates, our proteins, our fats, and our vitamins and minerals. So you have your macronutrients, your carbs, protein, fats, and then you have your vitamins and minerals. One thing that I hear a lot that I don't know that people really understand is that all carbohydrates will become glucose. Most people say, I'm trying to avoid having what I eat turn into sugar. All carbohydrates become glucose. Glucose is the body's preferred source of energy. It's this monosaccharide. It's this one molecule that the body really loves and prefers when it comes to creating energy in your body. This carbohydrates usually tend to come from fruit and veggies and grains. So although carbohydrates are breaking down into glucose, and glucose is a source of energy, it's not the same thing as sugar. It's not the same thing as like the sugar that you're thinking about in terms of table sugar. This kind of sugar, this glucose, is the sugar that's found in your blood. We call it blood sugar. So again, it's not the same as from table sugar. This is glucose, and this glucose is the preferred form of energy, and this is called your blood sugar. When you're thinking about table sugar or this breakdown into table sugar, it's not glucose, it's sucrose. So it tends to be two molecules. It's glucose and fructose. And so knowing this distinction that your body is going to break down all carbohydrates, no matter what it is, into glucose, not the same as table sugar, because this is the quick and easiest way. This is what your body prefers to get what it needs in terms of nutrients from what you're eating quickly. And these carbohydrates or this glucose fuels your brain, your muscles, your organs. All of these things are necessary. And by the way, your brain needs so many grams of carbs a day to function. And even if you're in a ketogenic diet, which we used to put patients when I worked in a hospital who were epileptic or who really needed to be on a real ketogenic diet, they're still getting carbohydrates. And they're watching that. They're trying to make sure that they're giving them the minimum amount to be able to preserve brain function. So that's the carbohydrates you eat, your fruits, your veggies, your grains, all of those things are going to turn into glucose. Your body isn't thinking, oh, this is a good carb, this is a bad carb. It's just breaking it down for what it needs for this particular time, for this particular moment, for this particular exercise you're doing or that you have planned to do today. Then you have your next macronutrient, which is protein. Protein is all the rage right now. It's all the buzzword. Most women probably aren't getting enough protein for what's happening in their body at this particular time. Although right now there is such an emphasis on it, so maybe we're even getting more protein than we need. But protein breaks down into amino acids, and amino acids help build and repair the tissues. They're really important in terms of maintaining muscle strength and muscle mass, protein, which is probably why you're hearing about it a lot. And also protein is really important to support hormonal function and hormones in general, which is probably also why we hear so much about protein because of this conversation about perimenopause and menopause, which is very much needed. So it's great that we're talking about it. But again, thinking about these things as not good or bad food, but they're just breaking down into what they're supposed to be, into the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. So it comes as a protein from whatever you're eating, and then it starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller, going to where it needs to go to support the tissues, to support your hormones, and to maintain muscle mass. And then we get into your fats, your third macronutrient, which provides essential fatty acids and long-lasting energy. And so you'll know that, and you've probably all heard that carbohydrates are about 3.4 calories per carbohydrate. Protein is 4 calories. And then your fat has about 9 calories per fat, essentially. And so you are going to get longer lasting energy. And for not a very big amount of fat, you're going to get a lot of energy from that. And that's going to be helpful also because it's going to be helpful if you're in periods where you're not eating enough, that you have some storage for that fat. The other thing is that there are vitamins that are fat soluble, vitamins A, D, E, and K. So you need fat, you need that macronutrient to help support those vitamins. And also fats are important to help with cell function. And it's also another thing that's important in hormone production. So they're your three macronutrients, your carbs, your proteins, fats. Again, they come in one shape and how you're eating them. And then throughout the digestion process, they're breaking down into these things that your body needs to store or that your body needs to utilize in order for it to function. And there's no good or bad titles on it. It's just what it is you're eating and your body's doing its job. Then you have your vitamins and minerals. And there are so many things that your vitamins and minerals are going to provide. They support countless processes that are happening on a cellular level. And that could be anything from immune function to nerve signaling to bone strength. So knowing that of the food you eat, your digestive system absorbs what it needs. It sends nutrients throughout your bloodstream to the areas that require it the most. And your body is so efficient that each day you're going to require different amounts of different things depending on how active you are, what's happening in your body, where you are with your hormones, lots of different things. And so when you don't get enough of certain nutrients, your body's always going to find a way to compensate. And so it's important that you're eating carbs, proteins, fats, and that you're also getting vitamins and minerals, because over time, if you're in a place that you have certain minerals that are depleted because of a disease state or there's something else happening in your body, you can have an imbalance, which can lead to some of the things that you may be feeling, such as fatigue, brain fog, or gut issues. And so it's important to kind of see these for what they are in terms of what they're doing to your body, these nutrients, versus thinking of them in a way that it's good or bad. Because you may have periods of your life where you may need more carbs. You may have periods of your life where you need less carbs, more protein. So it's always changing, and your body is trying to keep up with those changes. And then on top of it, if you are in a place that you have an illness or there's something else going on, it's going to further change what it is you require in terms of macronutrients. So let's talk about what happens when you are in perimenopause or perhaps you're postmenopausal. During perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause, hormone fluctuates. All your hormones are going to be fluctuating. And it's going to affect how your body processes and uses the food. So let's talk about some key shifts that we know that happens. A big one that we talk about on here, and I'm sure you've seen all over social media, is blood sugar changes. Estrogen is going to fluctuate when you're in perimenopause, and it's going to really become depleted as you're postmenopausal. Your estrogen will drop. And then that comes with insulin sensitivity, because estrogen works alongside insulin. And as levels of estrogen decline, your blood sugar regulation can become much less stable. So you could be eating the same things, but all of a sudden your body feels differently, or you get your hemoglobin A1C checked and maybe it's higher than it normally would be. And so in terms of what you would do, you're going to notice that the way that your body utilizes fiber and protein and healthy fats is going to change. And what you need in terms of that to help regulate your blood sugar in terms of macronutrients is also going to change. That you may have to switch. Maybe before you could have done some kind of carbohydrate or a higher amount of carbohydrates, but all of a sudden you don't have that estrogen anymore. And that blood sugar regulation isn't as stable. And so then it becomes more important for you to focus on getting enough fiber and eating things that are going to be more nutrient dense. So not eating your refined carbohydrates like your donuts and cookies, and all of a sudden putting a little bit more emphasis on whole complex carbs like your sweet potatoes and maybe your whole wheat products. And so again, you're going to notice that there's going to be these little changes because your body is processing carbohydrates in a different way, because you don't have the role of hormones that will help support you like you did previously. Also, there is muscle and metabolism shifts that happen in this stage of your life. With age, muscle mass is naturally declining, especially if you're not weight training. And that in turn can slow metabolism. If you're able to start to prioritize protein and strength building exercises, then you're going to be able to help preserve the lean body mass that you already have so that you don't have a great loss, and also maintain the muscle and energy levels. So it just becomes important that you're eating adequate amounts, which is probably why you get all of this hype on protein. However, I think that we also overemphasize protein too, and not everybody needs that amount. You may be somebody who, is going through something and you need more protein. Say you're lifting really heavy or you're in the middle of an illness. Your protein needs might be a little higher to kind of help compensate for that. But I think for most people, trying to make sure that you get protein at each meal, and then really just kind of like not so much focusing on the number, but just trying to make sure that you're getting it at each meal and then assessing how you feel. Because I do think sometimes when we're so focused on the numbers, we get away from how we feel. And I think the goal is to become more in tune with our bodies and more intuitive with how our bodies are feeling and what the symptoms are doing. And so perhaps at the beginning, it might be helpful to be like, okay, I'm getting this many grams of protein, and then adjust and just kind of in your head think about making sure that you get an adequate amount of protein with meals, but then really kind of starting to not focus so much on the number of grams that you're getting, but just that you're getting it with meals, and then watching and seeing how you feel. If you're working out and you're having a lot of delayed onset muscle soreness, then maybe you need to increase it more. But again, I think a good rule of thumb is just making sure you're getting it and you're getting it with each meal. Also, let's talk about your bone health. Calcium, vitamin D, magnesium, these are going to become really essential to protect your bones as estrogen declines. I believe in a multivitamin, that's completely up to you. I personally take one. I also take vitamin D. I take a minimum of 2,000 IUs a day. So, if that might be something if you've been deficient in the past. Most women are deficient, so I would say to make sure that you either get those levels checked or that you supplement with vitamin D to help make sure that you're getting what your body needs so that you can protect those bones. And again, I have a freebie in the show notes that you can find, and it's 5 things you should be doing today to help with aging and just help keeping your health as you age. So you can grab that, and there's a section in there about vitamin D. Gut health is going to change. Digestion may slow down. The balance of your gut bacteria will shift. So all of a sudden, maybe you didn't have to eat a lot of foods that had fiber in them. But now we know that as your gut is making these shifts, these foods that are really high and rich in fiber and probiotics are going to help support the digestion and your overall well-being. So going back to your macronutrients, this is going to come in the form of carbs. This is how you're going to get your fiber-rich foods. If you eliminate carbohydrates, it's going to be very hard to eat foods that have enough fiber in them. Your fiber-rich foods don't have to be your refined greens. They can be I'm trying to think of what I put in my salad. They could be your veggies, your fruit, your sweet potatoes, things like that are going to give you fiber, but are also going to be carbohydrate rich. And then also your probiotics. So whether you're taking a probiotic supplement or you're taking probiotics naturally in the form of kefir, or yogurt, or kimchi, or sauerkraut. All of those things are going to help diversify your GI tract, because we know that with the change in hormones and the change in just the aging process, your digestion may be slower. And we know there's a lot of research now that looks more into your gut microbiome, and that the more diversified, meaning the more diverse your food intake is, the less westernized it is, the healthier it is. And there's a lot of talking between your brain and your gut that happens that we haven't even seen the full benefits of. But also from an immunity perspective, if you have a pretty diverse gut GI tract, there's an immunity there that helps you. We know that during these changes of perimenopause and menopause, there is this increase in inflammation. These decline in your estrogen levels contribute to more inflammation in your whole body. And that can lead to things that can be really annoying, like joint pain. It can also lead to an increased risk of chronic disease development or chronic diseases in general. So eating your antioxidant-rich foods and healthy fats help counteract that. Now, your antioxidant-rich foods are probably going to come from your fruits and veggies, and it's going to come from the things that are going to provide you with your vitamins and minerals. Antioxidants can be your vitamin C, your berries, your spinach, all of those foods, which again is why you don't want to cut out too many carbohydrates, because you need to have something when it comes to that. And you also want your healthy fats too. So in terms of looking at your macronutrients, if you are somebody who has to watch your carb intake, maybe focus on the quality of the carbs that you need, or focusing on the fruits and the veggies. And maybe if you have really bad insulin resistance or your diabetes feels like it's very high and you're having a hard time controlling it, you can get a lot of nutrition from your veggies. It's not going to, depending on the veggie, it might not have as many carbs in it. And then also get some antioxidants from like berries or something like that, which you may be able to control, or that you're watching the portion size of what you're consuming, but not getting rid of them completely because they're a macronutrient that is serving a purpose in your body. You may also notice that you have shifts in your fat storage, that as a woman, you may have noticed that you have a redistribution during perimenopause or menopause, where you see fat all of a sudden being stored in your abdominal area. And this isn't a personal failing. This is related to hormonal shifts. And supporting your metabolism with balanced meals and making sure that you're moving can help with this shift in your fat storage, but also help maintain your energy levels. And so you could be eating the same amount of calories, but maybe you're doing less, or just that you're having this shift in your hormones that is all of a sudden, even if you've made no changes in anything that you're doing, will have this increase in your abdominal area in terms of fat storage. And that's part of the process of these hormonal changes that you may be undergoing. And then lastly, sleep disruptions. When you're going through this change in your hormones, which can last many years, you may have night sweats. I've noticed myself have an increased anxiety. You may have changing melatonin levels. All of these things are going to impact sleep, which then in turn impacts your hunger and fullness hormones. And so your cravings may be more, you may feel more hungry, but it might not be true. It might just be related to some of the sleep disruptions that you could be experiencing. All of these changes mean that how you nourish your body matters more now than it ever has. And if you're able to focus on what your body needs instead of what you think you should eat or shouldn't eat in a day, that's going to be where you're going to be able to help yourself the most. But before we dive into that, I want to just pause here and talk a little bit about body neutrality and this mindset, because I think it might be important as you're going through this time in your life that you don't have to embrace body positivity, that you have to love these things that are happening to your body. But maybe you can start with thinking about your body in a way that it feels neutral. A lot of times with body positivity, it feels like you have to love every part of your body all of the time. And when you're going through these changes, at least when I'm going through them, I don't feel that way. And it feels very forced, and perhaps it feels like that for you too. And so maybe instead of feeling like you have to love your body all the time, which might not feel true to you, that you instead embrace this idea that you are able to be neutral towards your body, that you can start to focus more on what your body does rather than how it looks. When we talk about body neutrality, we're talking more about respecting your body for what it allows you to do. It allows you to walk. It allows you to walk with a weighted vest. It allows you to think. It allows you to be with loved ones and make good food and exist in the world where you're providing joy to yourself and to other people. Body neutrality means making choices based on how you feel rather than trying to meet an ideal beauty standard. Body neutrality also means nourishing yourself because you deserve to feel good, not as a way to punish yourself for what you've previously eaten or to punish yourself because of what you weigh right now. When you stop labeling food as good or bad and instead start to see it as fuel that supports your body's needs, eating in itself can be much more intuitive. It can allow you to get in that space of being neutral because it's allowing you to do the basic everyday things in life without judgment. And then you become less stressed, more intuitive, more in connection with your body. And therefore, you start making choices that feel right for you, not right for somebody else, or not what is dictated by what you quote unquote should be doing, but what feels good for you. So think about that idea of body neutrality, that starting to shift that focus on what you should or shouldn't do, or that feeling of guilt and deprivation, and more on one that encourages you to love your body for what it is doing rather than how it looks. And then let's talk about, lastly, fueling yourself with what you need. How do you start to shift towards this idea of nourishment without feeling guilt? Here's a few things that I can think of. We've already talked about some of the things that could work, but focus on this idea of, instead of taking these things that you enjoy away from yourself, thinking about a way to add things that make you feel good. Focus on adding, not subtracting. Instead of cutting things out, think about what you can add to your routine that can support your body, that can make your body feel better, that maybe can help you have a little bit more stamina and energy during the day. When it comes to macronutrients, what does that look like? Do you need to eat more carbohydrates to get the vitamins and minerals that your body is asking for? Do you need to eat more protein because you feel like you're really sore after you weight train or walk, and maybe you're not fueling yourself in a way that helps you? Do you need to eat more fiber during the day because you're constipated or you don't have good bowel regularity? Do you need to add more hydration throughout your day because you maybe only drink about 8 ounces of fluid per day, and that's not enough for you? Do you need to add more movement instead of sitting at your desk every day? What does your body need to add to it so that you can start to feel better, or at least maintain the level that you have right now in terms of your health and what makes you feel good? Another thing here is to check in with how food makes you feel. Do you feel that when you eat certain meals, you're left feeling sluggish, that you don't have any energy? Are there other meals that you eat that you feel great and that you could do a lot more? This is very nuanced because it could be the composition of the food you're eating. Perhaps you feel really good eating a little bit more fat, a little less carbs, a little bit more protein. Perhaps you notice that you can eat certain meals at dinner and that works great. But if you eat those same meals during the day, they leave you feeling sluggish. But maybe at nighttime, it's okay because you're already getting ready to sleep, that you feel like it's okay to have that sluggishness. So it's really nuanced in trying to figure out and be a little bit more observant about what and how your body feels. I think we make all these changes and we make them so quickly that we never actually take the time to look at how we feel, because we're always going. But if you're able to really reflect on what it is you're eating, what it is, and how you feel from that, it's going to give you some really valuable insight about your body and what your body needs. And it'll allow you to see if your body changes over time, depending on if you're in perimenopause or postmenopause. Eating in a way that fits your lifestyle is also really important. Your food choices should work for you. They shouldn't just be a set of rules that you think that you need to follow. It's going to be what works for you, for your life, how active you are, what's happening in your family, what's happening, who you're taking care of. Make it practical, make it sustainable so that you have some flexibility here, because every day is not going to be perfect. Your life is always changing, always evolving, and you need to be able to go along with the flow to be able to maintain those healthy changes or the things that you're trying to change for the long term. And then lastly here is to give yourself permission to enjoy food. We talk about food as fuel for your body in this episode, but we also know that food is so many more things. Food is connection and tradition, and food is joy. Enjoying food, enjoying meals with other people is part of having a really well-balanced life. And so making sure that you give yourself permission to enjoy these foods, that you don't have to eat them all the time, but if they're there and you want them and it's going to enhance that connection or enhance that joy and tradition that you've had in your family for many years, then by all means, engage in that, partake in that, because this is life, right? Food brings joy. And so not thinking about subtracting things, thinking about ways that you can keep the things that you like, but in a way that gives you the nourishment that you need. And then that you can have these other things that nourish you in a different way, because food can fuel you in a way that nourishes you in terms of your macronutrients, your vitamins and minerals, but it's also nourishing you in a way that it nourishes your soul. And so making sure that you can kind of find time to balance both of those things. Again, it doesn't have to be every day, but in your life, you want both of those things because that's what's going to bring you joy. I want you to remember that your body is doing its best for you every single day. And the most supportive thing that you can do back for it is to meet it where it is right now, without judging it, without having any fear, and without feeling like you need to keep depriving yourself of something. Think about a way that you can start to add value and add things to what you eat every day so that you can give your body the nourishment that it needs and the nourishment that it deserves. I thank you guys so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you back here again next week. Have a good one. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you found value in this podcast, please rate, review, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends. Together, we can take tiny, imperfect steps towards creating the whole health we desire and deserve. Don't forget to grab your freebie. You can find the link in your show notes or over at triciard.com. I'll see you back here next week.